No, it's Tuesday. Black Ghost TV family, man, what's good with it? We back at it with another one. Fluenceboxing is in the building. It's Tuesday night. Y'all know I got some good shit to talk about when it comes to the boxing community. I know if y'all hop in here, whether you're going to rewatch it, whether you're going to catch the live, y'all see the title. We all have to talk about it. Obviously, it's been making a lot of noise in the boxing world. And I just wanted to, I'm not going to say necessarily I'm going to get into the intricacies of it. I'm not necessarily going to get into the superior details of it. But really, what I kind of want to discuss and what I want to touch on is mostly like my opinion on the situation, who I'm kind of like rocking with when it comes to, I know there's no sides when it comes to this thing, but, it makes it a little bit more drama filled or exciting when you look at it that way. But I'm going to give you kind of who I feel is in the right for the most part with the information that we have presented to us, and just kind of run with it and take it from there. You already know what it's about. Fluenceboxing, we back up in this thing. Yesterday we took a little day off for the Fluenceboxing, but if y'all go ahead, check out the podcast with me and Zen. The shit was fire. We was talking about some real shit if you want, you know what I'm saying? The first like 20 minutes, we do our usual little riffs and all that good stuff. But after that 20-minute mark, man, we going crazy. So make sure y'all go and check that out yesterday. And then check out the videos I'm dropping. As always, hit the like button, man. If you come up in here, subscribe to the channel. If you're not part of Black Goose family, hit the notification gang so you know every time some content is being dropped. And then as always, if you disagree with me, if you agree with me, whatever the case may be, man, go ahead and comment, all that good stuff. I want to hear from y'all, man. I love the back and forth. That kind of makes my day a lot more interesting. Not kind of, it really do. It'd be making my days a lot more interesting when I be seeing your guys' opinion on certain things, and either y'all totally disagree or y'all agree. Like one of the things I was surprised about when it came to some of you guys' opinion was the Josh Taylor Jack Catterall fight, because so many people were up in arms about the whole situation. I thought majority of you guys would be in kind of like the same way, saying it's a robbery, et cetera, which a lot of you guys were, but there was a few who actually was rocking with Josh Taylor and saying that Jack Catterall basically didn't come into the game or didn't come into the fight and take the belt away from Josh Taylor, which sometimes you can hear people argue that when it comes to fighting the champ in his hometown, has all the belts, like you got to come in, you got to take it. You got to give the judges no reason not to give it to you, rather than, you go in there and you win the belt, if that makes sense. So that was interesting, man. That's interesting. But that's why I do it. That's why I tell y'all, drop the comments. I want to see where y'all at. Make sure you guys keep on checking the community board. After I get off this, I'm going to post another topic for you guys to vote on to see how you guys are feeling. So make sure you guys go check that out. But anyways, now all that shit is out the way. Now that we're done, let's go ahead and hop into the topic. Like I said, I'm trying to keep these things around a certain mark. So we're just going to get straight into the details, talk about it. Y'all can hear my opinion. And obviously, I would love to hear what y'all got to say about everything. If you guys watch it later, whatever it may be, drop your comments about it. But this has to do, obviously, with the Ryan Garcia, Canelo Alvarez, and Eddy Reynoso beef. You can't even really call it beef. You can call it drama, whatever it may be. Actually, I was just in the whip before I got to the crib, right? And I was listening to Ryan Garcia's interview. And I think this is one of the, I don't know if this is one of the first interviews he's done since obviously the hiatus he's had. And, obviously other than going on social media and stuff like that, but it was on the Morning Combat channel. It was with Brian Campbell. It was only about like 8 minutes. It was real, what's the word I can use for it? It was interesting to say the least. Excuse me. I told you I'm trying to do better there. I'm trying to make sure I don't, you know what I'm saying? But it was interesting to say the least, because one, it seemed like he wasn't interested in the interview at all. It almost seemed like he was forced to do the interview. It looked like he didn't want to be there. His energy was low. His responses, you can tell they weren't thought out in any type of way. Honestly, it wasn't even about the responses not being thought out. I think it was almost like a disrespect thing, where it is almost like he was treating the interview like he didn't need any thought out responses for it. We all know Morning Combat, they cover boxing and MMA, but I would say maybe their fan base is stronger in the MMA side of the game. But it was an interesting interview. Brian Campbell, he did the best he could, but let's just be honest, it wasn't a good interview. Okay. And before I go into this and I break it down, I give you guys my opinion on this type of stuff, I want to make a disclaimer in this whole shit. Y'all know how I be when it comes to boxing, breaking it down, all that good stuff. For the most part, I am unbiased. I give y'all the real. I let y'all know what it is. If business is coming into play, I tell y'all why I feel the way I feel, et cetera, et cetera. But when I am somewhat biased when it comes to my opinion, I make sure you guys are aware of it and you guys know. In this particular case, I'm not sure how this live is going to end up. And what I mean by that is I may be talking sense in the beginning, but then I may veer off a little bit later. The reason that may happen, or I may say things that, especially when we're talking about Canelo and any Canelo fans come up here, they'd be like, what is he? And especially because a lot of the hate, Ryan Garcia gets like, he's become a villain overnight. He used to be the hero, And then the last 2 years, he turned himself into a villain. So let me just say this, and let me put a disclaimer. I may be a little bit more lenient on Ryan Garcia simply because of the fact that he's from where I'm from. That's it, okay? I'm putting that out there right now. So if you see me, like you hear me say something, you like, man, that's some bullshit. Or why are you being so lenient on him, Fluence? That don't make no goddamn sense. It's because Ryan Garcia is from my stomping ground. He's from the dirt. I'm from the dirt. So it's like, I'm not going to go too hard on Garcia. One, because of that, and then also two, because he's a young gun. But I will try my best to be as unbiased as possible. Salute to you, Mini Mill. Appreciate you popping up in this live. You know what I'm saying? Keep me on the straight and narrow. So we got one up here. He said, Lion Ryan. So first and foremost, Mini Mill, a lot of people, they share the same sentiments as you. A lot of people, especially because I like I said, go check out the community board. I posted in the community board. I've actually done 2 variations of the questions. Before Ryan Garcia had his response, I asked the Black Goose TV family, hey, do you think Ryan Garcia is lying? Do you think he's just undisciplined and Canelo's being honest? And then I also, did a second variation of the question today when Ryan Garcia took, basically responded to Alvarez's response to Oscar De La Hoya, and kind of asked the same thing, but in a different variation. But the point isn't not necessarily the variations of questions I asked, but it's how you guys voted. And on both of those on both of those posts, you guys voted in a majority for Canelo. So I don't know if a lot of my Black Goose TV family on here, y'all Canelo fans, or I don't know if y'all just hate Ryan Garcia, but on both of those, it was overwhelmingly in favor of Canelo. So most of y'all think that Ryan is on some bullshit. Even when I posted that video today, the couple of comments that were under it, they both were saying, hey, look, Ryan Garcia is on bullshit. I did challenge one of them, and I said, even if you may feel that way, right? Can there possibly, be an ounce or like a grain of truth in anything he's saying? Is there a possibility? And he said, yeah. And I appreciated his response, because it was actually a very good response. He was like, yeah, there possibly could be, but if we're going off of Ryan Garcia's track record, whether there is a slim chance of anything he's saying is being true, should it really matter? Because he has shown to maybe sprinkle the truth around, a plethora of lies. So he said in that comment, that's not my sentiments, but I had to respect it, because I was like, that's a very fair point, level-headed answer. I got to think about that. I got to take that into play and be like, okay, well, can I still have the stance that I have? All right. And ultimately what we're going to get to when it comes to this particular Fluenceboxing is, because y'all know, the short videos are for y'all. The Fluenceboxing is so y'all guys can hear my opinion. You guys are going to find out where I stand, and I'm just going to be 100% with you. Minnie Mill said, I hate this millennial generation of boxers. Now that's interesting. If you're still in here and you're listening, I would be interested to know why. Is it because you feel like, similar to the, the change in, and I've said this in the live before, the change in the NBA, the change in the NFL, a lot of the, older heads, or not even older heads, but really like boxing guys, including myself, you'll say, all right, this new generation, we're watching it. It's a lot different. Everyone went to fight each other back in the day, and everyone had the chance to an extent, right? Nowadays, right, it's not really the same. And you can compare that to basketball, right? A lot of people say, oh, back in the day, nobody was friends on the court. Nobody was trying to help each other out. They were all against each other. But because of AAU, now people are, that end up in the NBA, they're playing with each other at a young age. They see each other in the NBA, and now they're friends. And they're saying that decreases the level of competition, or at least what you're seeing when you're watching it, the eye test, right? And so I'm not sure exactly if Mini Mill is, kind of standing on a similar point, where he's just basically saying, hey, yo, look, a lot of these new generational boxers, obviously, you see, they have a more, their priority is more so toward building themselves up socially through their social media, YouTubes of the world, Twitters, Instagrams, and they're less worried about necessarily who they're fighting to create a legacy. Because you got to think about this. Back in the day, the only way you can create a legacy is if you had to fight certain guys for everyone to be like, I respect him. Nowadays, You can fight a plethora of bums, but if you're active on social media and you put yourself out there, you're going to have a fan base that fucks with you regardless. Now, obviously, for a boxing head, we're going to get irritated by that because we're going to be like, we know this guy's not that good. Or we assume he's not that good because he's not fighting the best level competition. But because he built himself outside of boxing, he has a fan base who's basically telling him, oh, he is that good. And you got to think about it. It's like a guy who hasn't fought at the top level, but he's achieved that success. So now he can demand certain fights, right? We've never seen that in boxing before. We've never seen a guy come into the game similar. We can even go as far as like the Jake Paul situation, where it's like a lot of boxing heads, a lot of boxers like, oh, they put in all this time and all this effort and all this stuff to get to a certain position, while Jake Paul kind of skipped the line. But he's just showing in this new generation, it's all about business, all about looks. Remember, guys, when it comes to Fluenceboxing, man, if whether you're new to the channel, let me say this specifically. If you are new to the channel, you're going to find out, man, there's a difference when it comes to this boxing channel. We acknowledge the real, and we acknowledge that business plays a big part of it. All right. We don't put all the blame on the fighter. So if we understand there's a switch in business, and the business is telling these fighters like, hey, we want you to really put yourself there on social media, because we know there's a level of money that can be made when you're big on social media, and you don't necessarily have to fight the top level opponents. Like, we get on a guy like Ryan Garcia, but where's the same energy for someone like Gervonta Davis? You know what I'm saying? Gervonta Davis is 4 years older than Ryan Garcia. And I would say maybe he's had 2 or 3 more bigger tests than Ryan Garcia. By the time Ryan Garcia is Gervonta Davis's age, Oscar De La Hoya could easily set it up where he has similar opposition to Gervonta Davis at this time. So that's all I'm saying. I'm like, it's easy for us to criticize what we don't know, in a sense, or criticize something that's new to us, right? But then when we take a step back and look at it from a different perspective, we can now be like, all right, let me be somewhat unbiased about this, okay? And what I'm seeing when it comes to the Ryan Garcia and Canelo Alvarez situation, I'm seeing a lot of people, rather than saying, let me listen to what this young man has to say, let me put to the side how I feel about him, let me listen to what this young man has to say. Rather than doing that, we're saying, oh, last year you was on some bullshit. The year before that, you was talking about you the biggest thing coming, but really you just got 1 million social media followers. You ain't no real boxer. And so as soon as we see a crack in that armor, as soon as we see someone like a Canelo, the biggest thing walking when it comes to boxing, you know what I'm saying, basically support our idea that Ryan Garcia isn't who he says he is, then what's going to happen? You know what I'm saying? A herd mentality. We're all gonna run to it. Look, I've been known Ryan Garcia wasn't that guy. He wasn't doing this, and that. Canelo confirmed it. And that's all a lot of us need. Now, remember, guys, disclaimer, I may be a little biased here because he is from where I'm from. And I understand he's a young gun. And I understand how a lot of people where I'm from, how we kind of think. You know what I'm saying? So that goes back to the interview I watched with him on Morning Combat today. And, they did a clickbait title because they said Ryan Garcia finally addresses the Canelo beef. And he didn't say anything on it. Actually, this is the interesting thing I'm going to get into, too. If you guys look at the community board, I said there was 3 options for the last Ryan Garcia. One of them was like, F all the drama. What is Ryan Garcia talking about when he says, at the end of the day, Oscar De La Hoya was the one who said I wasn't getting enough time. Yeah, that was a problem, but we all know that there's something that's not even the real reason behind why I left. There's a real reason behind why I left. You, Canelo, know it. I know it. He said this on Twitter, but I'm not going to put it out there. And so Brian Campbell, he asked him that question directly. He said, hey, what were you talking about? And his agent or his representative, and this is why I know they didn't respect the interview, because even before Garcia could say anything, his agent was like, next question. I'm like, that's unprofessional as shit. I'm like, signal something to Ryan Garcia where he can play it off. But for you to intervene on an interview that we're watching to say next question, there's something going on here, man. Right? Minnie Mill said, Bivol Canelo fight in jeopardy. No. As from what I'm seeing right now, the Bivol Canelo fight is good to go. They're expected for it to. Well, the option for it to happen is in Dubai. And right, the Bivol Canelo, obviously the fight is in jeopardy. A lot of people are saying that because of the whole, Russia, Ukraine thing. I'm not gonna go deep into that. This is a boxing channel. That's not my, cup of tea. But from what I'm hearing, Bivol has known about this fight being signed about 2 months ago. He's been training for this for about a month and a half, 2 months now, from what I've been hearing. So they've already kind of been in play to make sure Bivol was good to go. So what I'm hearing to combat the whole situation of, I guess that was the wrong word to use, combat, for what's going on in Russia and Ukraine, Eddy Hearn and his own, they're looking to do the fight in Dubai. So if they do it in Dubai, that's going to be mutual ground. They should be able to keep it going. But as of now, I haven't heard that fight being in jeopardy. Minnie Mill said, I lost so much respect for Lion Ryan, canceling fights, Lion drama, etc. This kid is talented, but is on a way to self-destruction. So that's a heavy statement. That's a heavy statement. Because one of my favorite fighter of all time, who's really in my top one, not based off of skill, not based off of what he's done, but just off of when I started following him heavy, and the longevity of me following him, is Adrian Broner, right? Why am I talking about Adrian Broner? Because Adrian Broner was somebody who a lot of people said the same thing about, but it was in a different aspect. Adrian Broner never had a problem being active in the ring. It was always the outside shenanigans that got to him. And what's the craziest part when it comes to Adrian Broner, it wasn't the outside shenanigans that ultimately got him to where he was now, but it was what happened in the ring. He took losses he shouldn't have taken. Where am I going with this? What am I saying? Fluence, why does this have anything to do with what Minnie Mill says? It does. Watch, I'm gonna bring it full circle. Sometimes when it comes to boxing and you're building somebody up and you understand where they're at as a promoter and you're trying to make money, when we're talking about the business side of the game, you have to understand that as much as boxing fans, we don't want to hear it. When you're a manager, you're a promoter of a certain up-and-coming fighter, you have to tell them, like, hey, this isn't the fight for you right now. We're thinking 3 to 4 years ahead. When you're talking to the fighter, you know, Ryan Garcia is not even in his prime yet. I think he's only like 24 years old. We're like, hey, we want you to have these big fights, but we want to be smart about it. And you got to think he's under Golden Boy Promotion. Golden Boy Promotions lost their biggest bag when it comes to Canelo, right? Their next biggest bag is Ryan Garcia. He's supposed to be the next Canelo for Golden Boy. So do you think Golden Boy Promotion is going to be quick to put that in jeopardy just because he sees the so-called others in the division taking fights that supposedly we didn't expect them to take? What am I talking about? Devin Haney, right? To an extent, you know, he had a great 2021. Gervonta Davis had an okay 2021 in regards to who he fought, right? Lomachenko ended up having a loss. He came back off of the loss. Teofimo Lopez, he was one of the guys who took a chance, and he ended up taking the L. So I'm pretty sure that what happened in Ryan Garcia's, camp and his managers, they took a step back and they said, hey, right? Remember in the beginning of 2020 going into 2021, we were hyping up the 135 division like it was the next best thing. We said, we need to see these guys fight. We need to see these guys fight. It was on trajectory for Ryan Garcia, calling out Gervonta Davis. He wants to fight Devin Haney. But in reality, though, and I actually think he's willing to fight these guys. I always say when it comes to, boxers and fighters, when they get to that level, the last thing they're thinking about is losing to someone or being scared of someone, right? I think it comes down to being prepared and make sure they have the right preparation to go in there and to show their skills off. But because being scared and picking the right fight, that's up to the manager and the promoter. The fighter shouldn't have enough time to think about that. So the way I see it, especially a young guy like Ryan Garcia, only 24, 25 years old, just had a daughter. Do you think he has enough time to think about, oh, if I fought Gervonta Davis, my life is ruined? I don't think he's looking that far into it. Like, you got to think about it. If you're that young, you achieve the success he's achieved, gotten to the level he's gotten, with everyone telling you he's never going to be at that level. You really think he's sitting back and saying, I can't beat this guy? You don't get to that level without thinking I can't beat everybody in front of me. That's my opinion. And you don't get to that level without having people around you implementing a mindset for you to make sure that when you're around these people, you carry the confidence so nobody sees no chink in your armor. You know what I'm saying? So it's like when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, okay, management sitting here, they saw a hell of a 2021 with some goddamn upsets and was like, all right, let's take a break back. You know what I'm saying? Whether or not he really had that injury, let's take a year off. There's not much happening. There's not much really out there for you. Obviously the Comey fights out there, all these other things, but we don't want you in that bag yet. We want you to continue to kind of improve your skills, flow, and then maybe we'll look around 2024 for those big fights, right? Because they're trying to build them up. I don't think Ryan Garcia is even to the point where he's built up to that point, but because he does talk a lot, because he does get a lot of social media attention, us hardcore boxing fans, we are like, hey, all that talk, but who are you fighting? And so I understand both sides of it. I understand why you would criticize Ryan Garcia heavily. I don't think any of the criticism he's getting is unwarranted. I think a lot of it is warranted, even from Canelo. But I also think we have to be realistic and understand that this kid is young. And you know what I'm saying? When it comes, like, who are we comparing him to? We're comparing him to Gervonta. Gervonta's 28. Nigga, 2 years from 30. Gervonta should have way more on his resume by now. Devin Haney is younger than Ryan Garcia. Devin Haney is an anomaly, though. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion. So, Many Mills said Canelo will fight Charlo and Benavidez and Boo Boo winner per Canelo. Is this true or is it cap? So, from what I've heard in reference to what you just said, Many Mill, Canelo said he'll fight any of these guys. But what I personally think, because he said, I'll fight any of these guys. He said, all of them want to fight me. He said, everybody wants to fight me. He said, why don't they fight each other and I'll beat the winner? Right? Whether that's true or not, in the case of they can make the fight happen, I believe Canelo. I think Canelo will fight anybody, man. I think Canelo will fight anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. But I also think Canelo's looking at it from the perspective of, you know, and it's very interesting because when Floyd was doing this, he got a lot of hate. He was cherry picking. He was running. When Canelo's doing it, it's respect, it's power. These guys need to fight each other. So I just want to point out those differences real quick. But what Canelo's doing is similar to what Floyd did when he was on top. Look, I know I'm the money fight. I know I'm the money guy. Of course I can fight all of you. But at the end of the day, why would I do that when I know fighting all of you doesn't make my legacy that much greater, right? Canelo's legacy is going to be great whether he fights Charlo, Benavidez, and Boo Boo, or whether he doesn't fight Charlo and Benavidez and Boo Boo. And Canelo knows that, and his team knows that, and his management knows that. Just like Floyd knew that back when he was the man and he was not clamoring for the Manny fight. He knew, hey, if I don't fight Manny, I'm still going to have a great legacy. I'll be fine. So when you're in that position, that's just the route Canelo's taking. He said, hey, I don't need to fight Charlo, Benavidez, or Boo Boo. My legacy is already set. But Charlo needs to fight me. Benavidez, he needs to fight me right now. Benavidez is the youngest of all of them. So Benavidez really, he has the most time because he's only like 27. Like, dude could make noise in like 4 years. Like, Benavidez could be the new Canelo once Canelo retires if they handle it right, to be 100 with you. But he's like, Benavidez needs me as of now, you know, to start building that legacy and be the next superstar. Boo Boo needs me. Boo Boo, Andrade is the one who needs him the most. Andrade is the one who needs him the most because he's the one who's left out high and dry. He's over with the zone. He's 33 years old. With him being with the zone, it's going to be very hard for him to, fight any of the like super known super middleweights, which, you know, is Caleb Plant, Charlo, and Benavidez. They're all with PBC. I don't see PBC, sacrificing or taking a risk or chance for any of those guys to fight Demetrius Boo Boo because it does nothing for them. It doesn't make enough money. So Boo Boo is really the guy who's kind of the odd man out. And if he doesn't get the Canelo fight, he's kind of fucked. But long story short, to summarize, basically, yeah, it's true. Canelo said he'll fight all of them. But at the end of the day, do I see it happening? No. And it has nothing to do with Canelo. It just comes back down to the business. PBC is only going to take the Canelo package if he's willing to fight Charlo and Benavidez. Right? That's the only way. And that's because they want to build up either Benavidez or Charlo. So if Canelo beats Charlo and Benavidez beats Canelo, they're building up Benavidez. If Charlo beats Canelo, or if Canelo beats Benavidez and then Charlo beats Canelo, they're building up Charlo. You know what I'm saying? So they want to try and put themselves in a position where they're not too much ass out if one of their main guys loses. Because you got to remember, at their super middleweight division, their cash cows is the guys everyone is talking about can beat Canelo. And when people say that, okay, that's fine. You can feel like their talent or their skill level is the kryptonite to Canelo. But if you're looking at it from a business standpoint, is it worth the risk for me to put my cash cow of the future against the Canelo? And if he loses, now I'm losing money. Now I just shot away 3 years of my cash cow, and I got to do what I can in the next 2. I got to make as much money as I can in the next 2 and now build somebody back up in the super middleweight or pay extra money to get someone to come over here. That's the idea, right? And a lot of people don't look at it from that perspective. And I can even circle that particular idea all the way back around to the particular topic And we started with Ryan Garcia versus Canelo versus Eddy Reynoso. Right? It's the same thing. Whose side are you on? Who are you more going with? Are you going more with the superstar, the hard worker in Canelo, where he said, hey, if you're in the gym 24/7, if you show you have discipline, Eddy Reynoso is going to help you out. Right? But if you show any type of lackluster effort, if you show that you're not going to be superly committed, if you're not going to show that you're your own workhorse, he's not going to come and baby you and hold your head. Right? Or you're going with the Ryan Garcia side of the game where he said, hey, look, Canelo doesn't know the whole facts. He wasn't there all the time when I was there. The first camp was good. After that first camp, everything got a little muddy. There was a particular camp where Reynoso only showed up for the last 2 weeks of training. He also, he said that's why Oscar Valdez left the camp. He also said, which there is rumors about that, but there's also been Valdez himself refuted those reports and just said it made more sense for him to just go back to Cali. And who knows, that might be him playing politics and not wanting to touch it. Because Ryan Garcia, let's be honest, he would be the person who would be okay with making this call out or putting this out in the atmosphere. Virgil Ortiz Jr., he's not that type of guy. They might ask him and say, hey, was there problems in the Canelo camp? He's not going to say yes. He's going to be like, we're good. Everything's fine. He's not even going to touch on that because that's not the type of guy Ortiz Jr. is. But with that even being said, hearing both sides, it's like, I understand where people say, okay, Ryan Garcia is somewhat of a drama king, because whether or not that's true, why do you need to put that out there? Why can't you just switch camps quietly like Virgil Ortiz Jr. did? Why even bring his name up into it when he didn't say anything publicly about it? Like that, you can look at it and say, okay, you're trying to stir some bullshit, right? But obviously, in my opinion, I don't think the young man would say something like that if there was no basis of truth around it. Now, let's get in kind of to the nitty gritty, the picky, the details of it. I'm not going to be too long-winded with it. We're already at 26 minutes. Y'all know I'm trying to keep, this shit around 30 minutes. But, okay, has anyone ever trained in a boxing gym? Like seriously legit, and you want to be serious. If you're in a hardcore boxing gym, whatever it may be, if you're not a guy who walks in and they're like, we're going to make all our money from you, which even though as popular as Ryan Garcia is, when you walk into the Eddy Reynoso camp, he's not the money man, okay? Shout out to Money Man. Love listening to that nigga. But he's not the money man, right? So now it's almost like Ryan Garcia is walking into a gym where he's like everybody else, like a me walking into a random gym, and they don't know who I am. They just see me and they be like, okay, let's see what you got. And what happens? The coach, the head coach, he doesn't work mainly with you. You got to show that you're willing to put in the work. So you got to come in there every day or whatever days that you schedule with the trainer. And you have to show you're willing to put in the work. You're doing a lot of it on your own. And then once they see you're serious, then they'll start kind of. And so in my mind, when I hear Ryan Garcia talking about, I feel like that's what happened. I think Ryan Garcia thought, hey, I'm going to make it, because obviously he's used to being the superstar. He used to being the guy. He's used to having all this attention. His dad was the one who originally trained him. And then once his dad, once he transitioned into the pros and he started getting more clout, they added another trainer. But everything was working. Everything worked specifically for him, as a cash cow should. But if you're a cash cow somewhere else and you go to a bigger gym and there's already cash cow in there, what ends up happening? There's a totem pole, right? And he went from being the top of the totem pole, now he's in the middle. And so what does that mean? Eddy Reynoso may not be, I'm not finna go over there and hold your hand, bro. I got Canelo I got to worry about, Sanchez, Valdez, now Virgil Ortiz Jr., Andy Ruiz came over. So what am I saying? Ultimately, what is my summary, or what is my conclusion to when it comes to this so-called drama between Ryan Garcia, Canelo, and Eddy Reynoso's camp? There's truth in both sides, guys. That's just what it is. There's truth in both sides. And it just all depends how you look at it. I actually believe Ryan Garcia when he said Eddy Reynoso did not have enough time for him. I believe it. I believe it. Now that other shit, the big secret or whatever that he doesn't want to expose, and on the interview when Brian Campbell asked him about it, his agent was like, next question. That's the shit I want to know about. What are we hiding here? And why did you put that out? Why would you put something like that out in the atmosphere and not be willing to follow up on it and really say something for real about it? Right? That's my question. But I do believe that Eddy Reynoso may not have had as much time as Ryan Garcia wanted to have with him, right? But it's a double-edged sword. Why is it a double-edged sword, right? Explain, Fluence. What are you talking about? It's not. It doesn't mean Eddy Reynoso was a bad trainer, right? Just because a fighter came in and Eddy Reynoso didn't have much time for him, that doesn't translate to Eddy Reynoso not caring about his fighters, right? And that's the narrative that's kind of getting muddied, right? Because if you're someone who's actually trained in the sport for a long period of time, you understand that if you're going over to a new gym, you got to prove yourself, right? Ryan Garcia knows that. But when you get a certain status, you don't think that applies to you anymore. And I think Eddy Reynoso was an old school guy. He's the same. He's still old. He's like, I may have all this money. I may have the biggest superstar in the world. I may be making all these millions. But nigga, we got here because we stood by something. We did something. This is what it was. And at the end of the day, I need to see it from you. If I see you in here every day, all this good stuff, you should be able to get yourself in shape. I've heard this from boxing coaches. You should be able to get yourself in shape. I'm just here to fine tune the skills, Nick. I've heard that. Those are old school boxing heads. There's some people, and that can touch back to the mini mill thing where I hate the new generation of boxers, where the new generation of boxers and trainers, they will cuddle you. But them old school trainers, they're like, nigga, I ain't here to get you in shape. I'm here to fine tune that shit. So you get yourself in shape. You work with the people you work with to get in shape. And then now this goes to when Ryan Garcia said Eddy Reynoso showed up the last 2 weeks of the camp. I'm coming in on the last 2 weeks of camp because I'm not getting you in shape. You know what that tells me? Ryan Garcia actually kind of exposed himself saying that. If Eddy Reynoso came in the last 2 weeks of camp, that means, nigga, all the other weeks you was getting in shape. That means you came into the camp out of shape. So what does that support? That supports that you're not as disciplined as you say you are. Nothing wrong with that. You a young gun. There's been rumors too about his younger, he said it himself, not rumors. He said, Ryan Garcia said it himself about his younger brother. He was like, he would be a beast, but he never comes to the gym. Patrons, people, patrons. I'm not saying you're the same as your brother, but if that motherfucker is around you a lot, that's a difference. I ain't around my brother like that. So you can't say his patterns are mine. But if he was around me a lot, you can possibly speculate that we do the same shit or be on some of the same bullshit because we around each other all the time. If he's around his younger brother all the time or a good amount of time or 25-50% of the time, whatever it may be, if he's lazy, you telling me a little bit of that can't rub off on you, especially when you're the more successful one? I don't know. This is all speculation, you know what I'm saying? But just from, I've been around like kind of the newer generation coaches where they're, they coddle and they're a little bit nicer. And I've been around the old school ones where they're like, hey, it's not my job to give you a worth ethic. You have to have your own work ethic. My job is to come in and fine tune your skills. And nigga, that don't take 6 weeks. It don't take 6 to 8 weeks for me to fine tune your skills. The 6 weeks, it don't take that long, right? But I don't mind being in the camp that long if you come in this joint and I see that you already in shape and you want to start fine tuning your skills from day one. I bet. And then there's also, some fighters that are so goddamn skilled and trainers really appreciate it. And this goes to what Ryan Garcia said. And this also tells me, and even though I love where I'm from the dirt and all that stuff, but this also tells me Ryan Garcia has had limited training outside of his father or whatever his father created as a sanction for him, because he doesn't understand when you go to just random gyms, a lot of these boxers, they're not used to someone working one-on-one with them. You'd have to pay the trainer for that. A lot of times you're really getting yourself ready, you're getting yourself in shape, and then your coach is there on fight day to corner you. You know what I'm saying? So he's a whole ass Frank Sanchez. He wasn't there his whole camp, and then he showed up on the day to corner him. Frank Sanchez is a Cuban fucking genius. He comes from the Cuban fundamentals. So he probably already has a whole entire basis of things he does for his camp and his training that he follows by. And then Eddy Reynoso probably comes in and helps fine tune some things. And so basically what I'm getting at, it's very interesting because I started this thing off being like, if I sound biased, please excuse me. And now I'm at this point, I'm like, goddamn. It sounds like I'm on Eddy Reynoso and Canelo's side. I really wanted to do this live and be against the grain and be against what everyone's saying and be like, Ryan Garcia has a valid point. Y'all got to stop saying he's a liar. Stop coming at that young gun. He from where I'm from. Show him some damn slack. I believe that though still. Show him some slack. But ultimately, if you really break down a lot of the things he said, unfortunately in my mind, from what I see, my opinion, he's complaining, unfortunately. a lot of the things, like in my and then I kind of want to say Oscar De La Hoya, what the fuck? Because none of this would have been even aired out if Oscar De La Hoya didn't make a point to say something about it, right? A lot of people forget Oscar De La Hoya said something initially. Ryan Garcia didn't say anything about the camp switch. He didn't say anything about Eddy Reynoso not giving him enough time. He just did it. I didn't even know he did it. This whole time when he was training for this fight, which is in April, I thought he was still under Eddy Reynoso. But Oscar De La Hoya came out and he said something, which made Canelo respond, which obviously, if I'm Ryan Garcia, this is the second time Canelo has hinted at me having a lack of work ethic. I'm a young nigga. I already got slaughtered in 2021 because of all this other shit people were saying. I gotta defend myself. I can't let Oscar say. So we have to also put into perspective was, I don't think Ryan Garcia wanted any smoke. I don't even think he wanted this shit out there. But Oscar De La Hoya, he put that out there because obviously he still got beef with Eddy Reynoso's camp and Canelo because of what they did to him a couple years back. And made headlines, got to Canelo. Canelo was honest, and unfortunately the pushback, it just hits Ryan Garcia. And if I'm a young nigga in Ryan Garcia and I see Canelo say that, I'll be like, damn, he's telling people again that I don't work hard. So what am I going to do as a young dude who doubts myself sometimes or has mental health problems, whatever it may be, or if I'm preparing for a fight, right? I'm going to allude to the fact that, hey, what I said was true. You don't know all the facts. And even if it wasn't true, in your opinion, that's not even why the real reason I left. Y'all don't even know the real reason I left, which is a smart play. Because if you're really watching, if you're really unbiased, if you're not putting an emotion behind it, you're going to say, F all that drama shit. Ryan Garcia literally just said what Oscar De La Hoya said isn't true, in the sense of the real reason why I left wasn't because Eddy Reynoso didn't give me any time. It was something else, and both me and Canelo know. Right? Smart play from Ryan Garcia. I won't lie to you. That's a smart play. But we're already past the 30-minute mark, so I'm not going to keep going. I'm not going to long-wind this, but this is my summary. This is what I have to say. What side am I on when it comes to this whole supposed drama? I think there's truth to both sides, right? I'm not playing patty cake here, so y'all just bear with me. There's truth to both sides, okay? Ryan Garcia, I don't think he told any lies. I think in Ryan Garcia's head, he truly believes like Eddy Reynoso was not there the amount of time I believe he was going to be there. And then also if there was a precedent set where in the first camp, Eddy Reynoso made it seem like he's going to be there throughout the entire camp. And then as each camp went forward, Eddy Reynoso started to treat it like he treated all his other fighters. Then obviously from Ryan's, perspective, if that's all he's had, where he's had someone, be right there with him and make sure he gets through his camp the way he wants it to, then to him, he's like, oh, okay, he doesn't have any time for me. But obviously on the outside looking in, you do understand if you're with an old school coach, been there, done that, has champions, they don't consider it their job to get you in shape. A lot of times they're like, hey, we have an 8-week camp. The first 3 weeks, if you got to get in shape, that's on you, nigga. And in the last, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever it may be, however long it may take you to get in shape within that 8-week to 10-week period, I'm going to be in there and I'm going to fine tune everything. So it's just a difference of perspectives. Ryan Garcia sees that as Eddy Reynoso having a lack of time for him, where if you kind of, if you're someone like me who was a freelancer and, went to different gyms, no one knows who you are, this type of stuff, and you do understand that is the mindset of older boxing coaches where they allow kind of the beginning of your camp to be on you, especially if a lot of that has to do with you getting in shape, because you're like, we're not in the business to get you in shape. You do that shit yourself. We in here to get you ready for the fight, who you fighting against, and have a game plan. And we can't do any of that if you're not in shape. That's what people don't understand when it comes to combat sports, especially boxing. We can't drill a game plan and get you ready for your opponent and get you in shape at the same time. It has to be two separate things. You know what I'm saying? And, if your experience as Ryan Garcia is always being that guy, that becomes new when you move over to a camp and there's someone bigger than you as that guy. Simple as that. So there's truth to both sides. Now, I think the particular anomaly that I have to address is the truth behind the discipline thing with Ryan Garcia. That's where it's like, we don't know if that's true or not. And I think that also comes down to why Ryan Garcia, his response was, that's not the real reason why I left. There's a real reason. You know it, Canelo. I know it, but I won't say it. I think that's where that came from. Because I actually think the whole idea of Reynoso not being there, if you know boxing, it's not a big deal, right? But I think it's Ryan Garcia was like, oh, you're basically telling the people that I'm not that disciplined again. You're telling them that I don't take this serious. I don't work that hard. Regardless if we feel that way, if Canelo feels that way, that young man got to a point that is incredible. So he feels like that's a slight to him. So he said, hey, you're going to slight me that way? Guess what? I'm going to slight you the same way. And I'm going to say, there's something going on in that goddamn camp, and that's why I left. But I ain't going to tell the people what it is. I'm going to let them speculate. Smart. Unfortunately, it didn't come off the way he wanted it to come off because so many people hate Ryan Garcia. A lot of people aren't even going to pay attention to that. People are just going to say, hey, bro, once again, you talking, you chopping it up. You ain't saying no truth. You just want people to pay attention to you. But please, Black Goose family, I urge y'all, if there's anything you want to take away from this entire shit, this entire stream, me touching on everything, is that I believe Ryan Garcia when it comes to that. I believe both sides. Like I said, there's truth to both. I believe there's truth to Eddy Reynoso not having time for him in the camp. I believe, there's truth behind Eddy Reynoso showing 2 weeks for the last camp, but I don't think there's truth in he did it because he didn't want to work with Ryan Garcia. I think he's just an old school coach. And he said, nigga, for this camp, we had a 10-week camp. It took you 8 weeks to get in shape. So I came the last 2 weeks because I'm not going to try and drill a game plan with you when you out of shape. You ain't going to remember the game plan. We can only go over the game plan and get you ready for your opponent when you're in shape and you can retain everything we're talking about. And it becomes muscle memory. Right? And it goes to the same thing with Canelo. I think there's truth in him saying the discipline behind Ryan Garcia, because I think Canelo's looking at it from the aspect like I'm in here even when I don't want to be in here. And I'm pretty sure when Ryan Garcia got frustrated with Eddy Reynoso because he didn't understand the tactics of Reynoso, obviously. And then remember, too, there's a language barrier between Reynoso and Garcia. People don't want to talk about that either. Ryan Garcia speaks English. He doesn't speak Spanish. Eddy Reynoso speaks entirely Spanish. He knows some English. So there's a language barrier. So people don't want to talk about that either. So I'm like, from Canelo, he's like, I come in here, I do my work. What's the problem? But that's because he's used, like Eddy Reynoso was his OG, is his day one. Garcia has an OG in the day one, and he knows what that's like. So if you go into someone else's camp and you expect them to give you the same type of time and what your OG did, and that's why you did it, and you don't get it, you're going to feel slighted. So it's like there's both ways. And then so when I say I understand what Canelo was saying in regards to the discipline, he feels like Ryan isn't that disciplined because there's probably days he didn't show up to that gym. Hey, you didn't show up to the gym certain days, so why would Reynoso take you seriously? The way I see it is just because he didn't show up to the gym doesn't mean that man's not disciplined. He could easily got that work in anywhere else. The nigga is a multi-millionaire. You think the only gym he has to go to train his boxing skills is with Eddy Reynoso? Life's a gamble. So I think Oscar has something to do with the mix. I love that you said that because right before I kind of got into this, I said I agree with you. I'm like initially, well, at least me personally, I didn't know Ryan Garcia switched camps until Oscar De La Hoya put it in the news. The first person to really put it out there was Oscar De La Hoya, like 3, 4, or 5 days ago, whatever. He was the one who was like, oh yeah, by the way, Ryan Garcia switched camps. He's not with Eddy Reynoso. And by the way, the reason why he switched camps was because he said Eddy Reynoso didn't have any time for him. I actually salute his camp switch. He looks much happier, blah, blah, blah. So I agree with you, Life's a Gamble. Oscar De La Hoya stirred all this shit up. And Ryan Garcia, being a young motherfucker, he's just like, well, I wasn't planning on responding or saying anything, but Canelo, you once again slighted me in the media saying I don't have a work ethic and I'm not disciplined. So that's what I'm saying. Is like I see truth in what Canelo was saying, whereas like to him, the outside looking in, I'm like, well, Ryan, you weren't coming into the gym as consistently as me. But I understand Garcia's point where I'm like, I wasn't coming to the gym as consistent as you because a lot of times when I went in there, I was just working on my own. I went to your gym specifically to soak up knowledge from legends. But if I'm coming to your gym on a majority of the time and I'm just doing the same shit I would have done at the crib or I would have done with my the trainer I had, I would have never switched. So guess what? I'm not going to show up to the gym today. Canelo, you might say, oh, that means he's lazy. But nigga, you don't know if I'm at home putting in work. So I see that perspective too. And that's why I feel like Ryan Garcia is offended because he's like Canelo, how you gonna call me lazy just because you don't see me putting in the work? Like, bro, But at the same time, Eddy Reynoso is guy, so he doesn't want a certain type of narrative. So it's like, that's what I'm saying. I see truth in both sides. I just think it gets very interesting when Ryan Garcia went the route and said, hey, you know why I left? It had nothing to do with the time. I was okay with that. And you got to think about that too. A guy like Ryan Garcia, Oscar De La Hoya backing him, there's so much money behind him. He can train at an entirely different gym for a camp, and then ultimately his corner man could be Eddy Reynoso because they have that much money. You know what I'm saying? So they could have made that work. So when he says something like that, I kind of believe Garcia. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like there was something else also that made him be like, this might not be the best atmosphere for me. I'm a young, impressionable mind. Maybe this won't be the way for me. I don't know. That's all speculation. I don't know the truth behind that. That's just what's out there. But I already went. This is way longer than I was supposed to go. I'm supposed to be keep this shit around 30 minutes. So we in the 45-minute range. Oscar is like Palpatine and Ryan is like Anakin. Turn to the dark. Hey, that's actually a good ass comparison. I actually, you know what? That's another topic for another day. Is Oscar De La Hoya a bad influence on Ryan Garcia? Is there a possibility that all of this beef, all of this hate, our outlook on Ryan Garcia has to do with the fact that Oscar De La Hoya is doing a terrible job promoting him? Think about it. We wouldn't be talking about this if Oscar De La Hoya kept his mouth shut. We would just be talking about Ryan Garcia's comeback fight, right? And we wouldn't even say anything about the camp switch until maybe like the week of or something like that, when we see him doing his open workouts and stuff. We're like, wait, that's not Eddy Reynoso. So it's a double-edged sword. Maybe Oscar put that out there now because he was trying to get ahead of it, because maybe he knew, like, okay, once they see the week of the fight, Eddy Reynoso isn't with them. Now we're going to have all this drama, people asking questions, and he doesn't want Ryan Garcia to be worried about that the week of the fight. He's like, okay, if we get this out here now, we're going to have maybe 2 or 3 weeks of us talking about it. But then when we get closer to the fight, no one's going to give a fuck. So that might be it too, which is smart. You know, it all just depends on, you know, how you want to look at it. I could see both sides. Hey, let's get out in front of this, so this isn't a problem later down the line where people are trying to make this a big, you know, deal, and we're 2 weeks out of the fight and we're trying to keep Garcia focused. Let's talk about it now, or we're, you know, because it's in April, January, February, March, April. Yeah, we have a whole month. I think it's April 4th, 9th, something like that. So we have a whole month and some days. Let's get it out the way now. So, you know, when we're closer to the fight, Garcia can just focus on the actual fight. That might be it. Who knows? Look, Oscar De La Hoya, I'm not a fan of him. He seems like a douchebag to me. But, hey, the guy's been in business for how long? You know, he's made multi-millions for a reason. So obviously he understands business and promotion and marketing. So I can't, you know, say anything when it comes to that. I still think it was interesting for him to put that out there, not Garcia. Especially if he's switched camps. They said he switched camps like it's been a while. Like he did it around like last year of like November. So it's like I would think he would have put it out then to get ahead of it rather than a month before the fight. But it also can come down to promotional shit. He could be like, all right, let me get ahead of this just far enough. You know, let me get far enough ahead of this, you know, where it won't affect him during fight week, but it's close enough to the fight date where now everyone's talking about Ryan Garcia, and maybe, you know, the eyes that we wanted on the particular fight coming up, we didn't have as many eyes as we wanted, but with us putting this out here, putting this drama out there, now more people are going to be paying attention to this fight, because even though we don't necessarily know who he's fighting, Dogbo, hopefully I said his name right, we're going to be like, oh, how does Ryan Garcia look now that he's not under Eddy Reynoso? Did he approve, right? And that's a great marketing tactic. So 3 sides to it, man. That's the way business works. You feel me? But, you know, it just all depends on what kind of the motive is coming from. Minnie Mill said, Oscar as a boxer is all-time great. He's a straight up raw dog, but as a promoter, hey, I agree with you. He's dropped the ball a lot as a promoter, but, you know, he was the guy. He was the first guy who believed in Canelo. And, you know, whatever you guys want to say, you know, about that, you know, Canelo's been the top dog for maybe like the last 4 or 5 years, and part of those years he was with Golden Boy. You know what I'm saying? Canelo was built up to the point with Golden Boy where when he was able to leave, he's been able to become his own promotional company, similar to a Mayweather, and demand all his fights. So regardless of what we want to say about Oscar as a promoter, period, when it comes to other fights, he is a big part in Canelo, and because of that, he's going to have probably a long-standing career. So I do agree with you, promoter. You know what I'm saying? But I'll give it to him. When he has a guy that he really rocks with, he'll ride with him to the goddamn end. And so far, you've seen that with Ryan Garcia. He was very quick with the shift He even, think about it, after the split with Canelo, he got sued by Canelo, and he still allowed Ryan Garcia to go over there to Eddy Reynoso's camp for those 5 fights. Let Canelo be at a lot of those fights and not feel any type of way. You got to give it to him. That's not that bad. He knew where the money was. At the end of the day, when you're in that position, when you're in that business, you're making that much money. A lot of times you have to sacrifice your ego for, the now. So I think, Oscar De La Hoya is really relishing in the fact that, okay, Ryan Garcia is finally away from away from Canelo in his camp. We got a little beef going on. I love it. And so because of that, I won't be surprised if we see Ryan Garcia, fighting the guys that we don't want to see fight, because he understands that he has to build that man up. You know what I'm saying? Because I think his other, what would you say his other biggest draw would be, Jaime Mwanga, Ryan, Victor, and Mwanga. Yeah. So that's what I was going to say. I was like, what is his other draw? Like Mwanga, but yeah, of course, Victor Ortiz Jr., that's another big one. But, how long is that going to last? These 3 guys have future potential, but you're going to have to be careful, because you got to think about Ryan, Victor, and Mwanga are all in weight divisions with guys that we would potentially say could beat them, or if not beat them, will be able to control the division just because they have a little bit more power behind them because of their longevity. But we're talking about younger guys in Ryan, Victor, and Mwanga. So it's going to come down to making sure that he makes the right fights at the right time. And that's why I'm like, obviously, I'm just going to be 100. Like, I was watching the Ryan Garcia, interview with Morning Combat. He came off very unlikable. Regardless, I'm going to rock with you, Ryan. You're from where I'm from. You're from the dirt like me. Salute. But he came off mad unlikable. But at the end of the day, he understands his future is in those 3 names you just named. So let's not act surprised when we see these guys get the fights that we weren't expecting. I think Mwanga is the one guy out of those 3 that we'll see be tested this year. And if not this year, the soonest. Because I think Mwanga, in my opinion, I think he has the most upside of the 3. Mwanga is a fucking dog. And the improvement Mwanga has made in comparison to like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when I watched him, I'm like, damn, this dude's been working. And he's still young. So, yeah. I'm not going to get too long with it. I'm way past with this. But let me say this, though. I appreciate everybody who came up in here, man, and supported this, came up in here, listen, drop your comment. Life's a gamble. Salute to you. Mini Mill, really, really salute to you. You kept everything popping. What's your take on Jamie Mwanga? Like I said, I'm a fan of Jamie. Jaime Mwanga. Every time I watch his fights, I always got people coming in the comments like, bro, you say his name completely wrong. Jaime Mwanga. I'm a big fan of Jaime Mwanga. I think he's a beast. His improvements over the last 3 years has been incredible. I remember the dude just used to be a brawler with power. Now this motherfucker has a jab, and he just brings combinations behind it that are just beautiful. And his defense was not that good 3 years ago. His defense has improved ridiculously. He's going to be a problem. There's a reason why Jaime Mwanga versus Triple G was talked about a lot when it came to 2020 and 2021, and they didn't make that fight. All right. Ryota Murata, he's under Golden Boy as well. That fight got ranked. Or is he under Top Rank? Ryota Murata might be under Top Rank. I can't remember. But Ryota Murata, he's no joke either. There's a reason why Triple G is taking that fight, also because of the belt. Like, I got to slow down a little bit, also because of the belt. But Jaime Mwanga ain't no joke. We be talking about Charlos, Benavidez, all this type of stuff, but nobody talks about Jaime Mwanga. Dude is a stud. I think he's really solid. So, that's my opinion. Mwanga versus Charlo would be, I don't think Jamal wants that. Because of what I've seen with the Charlo brothers, both of them, Jamel and Jamal, they have a lot of problems with guys who are able to get hit, but also be able to return the favor and also stay active when returning it. So when they have real active fighters, you know what I'm saying? Fighters who throw combination punches, here, there, everywhere. And they rarely take breaks, and they might get hit with a big shot and they're coming back strong. I've seen the Charlo struggle against those. Jamel with Tony Harrison. Tony Harrison was really that guy. But Jamel with Tony Harrison and Brian Castano, Jamal with Korbrev and Derevchenko. Jaime Mwanga would be a tough fight for Jamal. I really believe that, but it would be fire. I think Jaime Mwanga versus David Benavidez would be crazy. That'd be a crazy fight. Heard Jamel Charlo might fight Mwanga at 160. Well, Jermell got to get through Castano first because that got postponed because Castano had that injury. So he has to get past Castano first. And I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. I'm a big Jermell fan. I'm a bigger Jermell fan than Jamal. But he's going to have to get past Castano first. And then if he does, there's talks of Crawford winning the winner of that fight. So I think Mwanga right now, I think he needs to just kind of focus on the 160 division and then focus on kind of, because he's still young, but getting his weight up. And like, I think the move for him is 168, where you feel comfortable enough, get up to 168, because that's where all the money is at, in my opinion, to be made. But I'm going to get up out of here, y'all. It's getting late. I got to go, I got to get ready for work tomorrow and all that good stuff. Still got some things to take care of around the crib. Appreciate you, Mini Mill, coming up here, man. Really getting the chat popping. Once again, salute to Life's a Gamble. You dropped a little something up in here. So I appreciate everybody, man. I'm going to be back tomorrow in this thing with another Fluenceboxing. So happy Tuesday to everybody. We at the middle of the week. So thank God we almost to the weekend. Nothing but blessings. You know what I'm saying? Positivity y'all way, man. Let's keep the grind going. Let's keep the work going. The goal for Black Goose TV, man, we finna be one of the biggest boxing channels this year. So make sure if y'all come up here and rewatch, hit that subscribe button, man. If you're not part of the family, hit the like button. It helps a lot. And just comment on this joint. You know what I'm saying? That really helps the algorithm get new people to take notice and hear the takes, because we got the most educated boxing fans when it comes to this thing. You know what I'm saying? And Mwanga definitely brings the fan base. People don't know. He definitely does. He has people behind him, and you got to give Oscar De La Hoya a little credit for that, because when he was originally promoting Jaime Mwanga, I didn't think he would be where he is now. So I give him credit for that. But take care, man. Appreciate you coming here. Appreciate the comment, man. I'm here to, we're pushing out the content. So salute, blessings. I'm out of here. Enjoy the rest of y'all night. Stay positive. Don't let nobody bring you down. And, get to the bag. I'll be back tomorrow. Check out the community board for any, topics or questions y'all want to, hop up in, and keep that notification bell on, because content is dropping all the time when it comes to Black Goose TV. I'm out of here.